Welcome back to the Life as an Autistic Person podcast, everyone. This is episode number 9, titled Fluctuating Maturity. And as the title suggests, I want to talk about maturity in autism, specifically how it relates to me and also some other people from what I saw from the bit of research I did, and how it kind of changes from when you are young to when you get older, like in a weird way, at least compared to like normal neurotypical people. So I just want to talk about that. So let's just get right into it, shall we? So yeah, fluctuating maturity. I have a lot to say about this because from the bit of research I did, it seems like with many autistic people and even neurotypical people, like in general, ADHD people as well, like we seem to have a bit of a different maturity level when we're young compared to when you're older, but like in like way differently than normal people. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, what I mean is, like, for me personally, and I will get more into detail about this throughout the episode, but I was seen when I was really young that I was so mature for my age. I really like to be with the older crowd. I was seen as older either because of my demeanor, how I looked, and then also how I acted. I remember there's one time when I first got to sixth grade, and then I was asked by a seventh grader if I was an eighth grader, if that makes sense. It was like around that thing. So yeah, I remember that. And like, no, that's not what happened. And then of course, throughout multiple times in like the store, I was confused for being like an adult, because I was looking around the games and I looked like I could buy things with my own money or whatever, but I was only like 15, and then eventually got older. But yeah, it was seen as older when I was younger, but as the years went on, basically as soon as I turned like 17, 18, around there, I started to feel like my maturity level kind of went down the drain, because like I'm still pretty mature for the most part, but for some things, like actual adult things you should know by now, like driving or how to cook for yourself, or even just talking to like another adult, I just can't do that. And of course, that's related to autism too, having trouble to communicate with others, but like lately I've been having to go to like these things like a doctor or for like a lawyer, because I'm trying to get a social security thing, the disability check for my autism. Anyway, I've been having to go to these places and I just can't talk to them. I need my mom there to speak for me, or at least with me, and it's just really hard. And that's kind of, sometimes I feel like that's embarrassing, like an adult needs to do this, but again, I have autism. But you can see where I'm coming from, right? These things that most young people should know, I do not. And yeah, that's kind of when I started to realize, like, oh, I'm not mature, really. This really happened in like high school, in the later half of that, because everyone had like a girlfriend, had cars, all that stuff, and I was just doing the same thing. And I just felt weird. I was like I was more mature than other people my age, and then suddenly I'm like way younger than other people. So yeah, that's what I mean when I say fluctuating maturity. But there are other examples. I did see something about like some autistic people and even ADHD people. This is not confirmation, but I believe my brother has ADHD, though. My mom doesn't want him to get tested because she's afraid about medication or whatever. Anyway, I think he has ADHD, but even so, I know there are other ADHD people and even autistic people that they have like the opposite problem, where maybe when they're pretty young, like I don't know, say 13, like my brother is, I feel like sometimes they act younger than they do in certain ways, but sometimes they also do act older in certain ways, I did see something about this in a Reddit post about a mom asking about if maturity level will catch up, because I think this kid was like 13, but they were apparently acting like a 6 or 7 year old and not having much social interaction and all that stuff. So I think it just kind of depends, but from what I mostly see, I think most autistic people, it kind of goes like, oh, you're seen as more mature for your age when you're younger, and then you get less mature when you're older. and it's kind of the reverse for ADHD a little bit and some autistic people as well. But it just kind of depends, and also it's not like a broad thing, like I'm sure, not every immature person, is immature at everything, or every mature person is mature about every single topic. It's kind of varying levels of different topics, but I'm getting kind of sidetracked. The point being is that everyone is different. Neurotypical people are different, but from what I saw, I think this is what most autistic people feel. They feel younger when they're older, and then they feel older when they're younger. It's just kind of a weird thing. So more details on me feeling like I was more mature for my age. So I've talked about this in like other episodes too, but I talked about how my dad passed away when I was 6 years old on my birthday, November 19th, 2010. That's when he died, when I turned 6 years old. And because of that is a big factor as to why I kind of was more mature for my age, along with the fact that, I was obviously showing signs of autism before my dad even passed away. I didn't talk to people still, but when my dad died, I really didn't talk to people for like a while. But anyway, that was like a big proponent for me to I kind of had to grow up like way quickly. For like a year, I was worried that my mom, like something would happen to her. I kept watching over her to make sure she was okay. When my mom had my brother, I kind of looked after him like he was like one of my kids, And funny thing, one of his first words was dad or daddy or something to me, and then he started calling me Joe, which is my real first name, but I prefer you guys to call me Choppers. Anyway, I kind of had to grow up, and a large part of it, in fact, was because my dad passed away. I kind of was seen as like the man of the house personally in my own mind, and I just felt so scared, sad, and all that stuff, worried about my family. So I kind of felt like I needed to grow up faster. But again, a part of it is also just the autism thing. I was more mature even before my dad passed away. Like, I remember like my mom telling me, and I even remember one time myself, I would read the newspaper a lot. I would like get on the news, when I was like 4 years old, 5 years old, so I was more in tune with maturity. And after my dad passed away, I was more mature in terms of things like being respectful, but also my feelings. I've been more open because of that, and because of that, I liked hanging out with like older crowds, like adults. I just thought that a lot of kids my age, and I kind of still feel this too nowadays, to be honest, even though I think in some ways they're more mature than me. But I think a lot of kids my age back then, and even like for a while, and even now maybe, which I'm 19 by the way, I'm probably not even a kid. Would you consider that a kid? I don't know. Anyway, I feel like they're way more immature than I like to admit. Like, they are really like, oh my god. I used to be such a stickler for rules, lots of teachers liked me, but lots of kids didn't. I remember getting mad at there were kids swearing that I was kind of hanging out with in like fourth grade, and then I told it was a monitor, which was, if you don't know what a monitor is, it's basically, there's like some people that walk around in like the playground in like elementary school. I think there's sometimes one in like middle school. Anyway, in elementary school, there's like these people that walk around, they make sure everyone is behaving, all that stuff. And I told one person, one monitor, that these kids were swearing, they were doing this and this. And then then they got in trouble, and then they got mad at me, and then they stopped letting me play with them. I wasn't even really playing with them, but I kind of hung around with them, and they kind of stopped doing that after that happened. But then I kind of realized, like, in one way you could see that as mature, right? I mean, I want to respect the rules, but in another way, maturing is also kind of like not caring, So in a way, like, it's kind of weird, right? Because eventually I kind of just realized people are not going to stop swearing or whatever. I'm just going to let them be, who cares? If they get in trouble, whatever, it's their fault. So I kind of was already mature, but I kind of matured even more, if that makes sense. I don't know. But the point being, I like to just follow the rules and keep to myself and be mature, and lots of adults really like that about me. But then as I got older, and I do kind of have a theory as to why this happens for many autistic people. But as I got older, I kind of felt like that started to change gradually over time, especially when you turn 16, because that's when, kids start having cars and all that stuff. They have relationships. I mean, I know some kids that had, boyfriends, had girlfriends in elementary school. Like, oh my God, like how? But, middle school and then high school, it's like where most people catched up and, had these relationships. And I never had any of that. And, some people, I don't want to talk too much about it because I kind of don't like it. But, some people lost their virginities, and you talk about sex, all that stuff. Again, I don't really like talking about that stuff. It kind of grosses me out, to be honest, because I'm asexual, but that's besides the point. Anyway, I kept hearing all these things, and I started to feel like, wow, I am not really, I felt like I wasn't being mature, Obviously, those kind of things don't make you mature for the most part. It's kind of just a perspective thing, like, do what you want, like, who cares, don't compare yourself to others. If just because someone is in a relationship, you don't have to be in a relationship, but I started to feel like, wow, I am not really ready for these things, like having a car or a relationship, and I tried to do these things, but I couldn't. And it just kept getting worse and worse and worse as both, I got older, and then eventually when I became an adult, because it feels like the world wants you to, that you have to figure everything out at 18. You gotta go to college, you gotta learn how to drive if you haven't already, you gotta find a job, you gotta have a super clear plan for the future. And that's not the case for even non-autistic people. Not everyone has their life figured out at 18, but it feels like the world wants me and other people to figure it out. And that's really what started to make me feel like I was immature for my age, later on, which was weird. And I think the reason why this happens, I said I had a theory. I kind of saw this on Reddit. By the way, I do a lot of like research on like Reddit. I know Reddit, oh, it's a great source of information. I just like Reddit because, you could see different people's opinions on certain things, along with the articles that actually talk about this. But I like seeing people's responses to this thing, like someone asked, does anyone feel this way on like an autism subreddit? And the people are like, yeah, I feel this way. Anyway, my point being, I did see someone posted on Reddit or like a comment that they think, and I do agree with this, that it probably has something to do with like time dilation, kind of like a reverse Benjamin Button, or whatever that guy is, the character where you're aging backwards. But like, it's basically some sort of time dilation thing where you start off, at least many autistic people, you start off more mature for your age, and then you're not, as you get older, you kind of stagnate in how you're perceived by everyone, including yourself. And because of that, you don't seem to mentally age compared to, other people, which, usually, I mean, to some extent, I feel like most people are kind of immature to some extent, like, oh my God, the teenagers in high school and middle school and all that stuff. Anyway, but you're not seen as mature, to some people anymore, because you kind of were always seen that way. And then, the perspective changes, like, oh, they got really mature, this other person, and you stayed the same, like what? And also, it has something to do with like autism in itself. We have difficulties doing these things, like, social interactions or whatever. Like I mentioned earlier with like the doctors and lawyers and all that stuff. It's kind of like a big part of the world. And so when you start off mature when you're younger and then you get older, you have to do these more adult things, like be more independent. And because of that, we struggle. And because of that, we're seen as, not as mature. I don't know, there's like a whole thing that I could bring up, but I think that's like the basis as to why we kind of, at least for many autistic people, we seem like we, are more mature when we're younger, but then we get like immature when we're older, if that makes sense. I guess I could talk about some examples of both how I felt mature when I was really young and how I don't feel mature nowadays. I mean, I talked about some of them already, but I could just bring up some more, why the heck not? McDonald's, right? McDonald's is good. I still have McDonald's, but you know how you usually got like Happy Meals or whatever? When I was really young, I stopped getting Happy Meals. I did not really care for them. I like the toys, but usually the toys kind of suck, especially nowadays. But, I always like the bigger meals, the bigger things you got from McDonald's. Like the fries, for example. I just love getting bigger fries. Even, nowadays I get 2 fries, I just love the fries so much. And having just a small packet of fries from the Happy Meal just can't suffice for me. I'm sorry. But when I got older, I never got Happy Meals, really until like unless I was like really young, like under 5 or whatever, or 6. But around like 15, 16, my brother kept still getting Happy Meals, and eventually he wanted the bigger things. Like he wanted like chicken nuggets. He didn't want the Happy Meals at all. And around that time, I got really sad because, even though I didn't really grew attached to the Happy Meals, I grew attached with him for the Happy Meals, seeing the toy he got. And it kind of felt weird, like, that he was growing up, and like not really taking Happy Meals anymore compared to me, which I never really had them for the most part, So yeah, that's like kind of a weird thing. I mean, that kind of fits, right? I guess another recent example that I kind of brought up even in today's episode was talking about like cooking, but in more detail, more specifically, I'm talking about like just a simple microwave thing. I don't know how to do that. My mom and brother tried to help me. Like my brother knows how to do it. He's almost 13. I might have said he was 13 already. He's gonna be 13 this month at the end of October, the 29th to be specific. Anyway, they tried to help me and I don't get microwaving at all. But I just can't even prepare my own food, and that was fine when I was way younger, but now that I'm an adult, like that feels kind of embarrassing. Like, what the heck is wrong? My own younger brother can prepare food more than me, and it kind of is sad. I guess in another way that I was kind of more mature for my age was the numerous heartbreaks I had, which I mentioned in like some other podcast episodes, where I got rejected by a girl in 5th grade, and I kind of was dealing with that all summer. Of course, you guys know about what happened with Clarissa, who was a Jehovah's Witness. I made a whole video talking about that. Even brought her up in the traumatic experiences episode. But like, that stuff, I felt like, especially the thing when I was in 5th grade, I feel like many other people, my age did not experience that. And I was just way more in tune with my feelings compared to other, normal kids, Oh, here's another good one. My stuffed animals. So I have right here, right next to me, I'm recording this on my bed like I always do. I record videos on my bed. But right here next to me, I always sleep with my stuffed animal. He's like a leopard or a jaguar or something. Anyway, his name is Papa. He is adorable. I have done a YouTube short on him before, and I love him a lot. I love him a lot, especially because my dad gave him to me on my birthday, when I was born, and then I named him Papa, He just kind of reminds me of my dad, and I love him a lot. And that is something that, look, when I was younger, I slept with him, up until I was like, I don't know, I want to say around 10 years old, maybe a little bit less than that, like 9. But then I kind of put him, not away, he was still near me, but I put him like off to the side on a table to like sit there. and watching over me. But I never really slept with him until like around like 16, 17. I started to miss him, and I know a lot of people don't think that's mature, to sleep with like a stuffed animal or whatever, but I love him a lot. And in general, I like having stuffed animals, either around, my bedroom or my bed or whatever, because they're just nice, they're just nice. And, in certain ways that is not mature, but in other ways, you could see it as mature because who cares? Again, maturity is kind of like a point of view, if you will. Certain things can be more mature than others, like objectively speaking. Hopefully I pronounced that right that time. Anyway, you could view it in different ways, maturity, but overall, being the most mature you can be, it's just not about caring what other people think. Let's be real here. Even what you think personally, because I still feel this way where sometimes I do still feel like I'm not mature for my age. I can't do this or that. I don't have a girlfriend. I can't drive. But all that stuff. But at the same time, maturity, real maturity is not caring. And I think that's okay. Not that I can't improve on those things. Like, I do want to try to learn how to drive or get a girlfriend, all this stuff. But I don't need to be stressing over that and be like I'm basically worthless or something, because I don't have these things like other people my age do, so that's kind of just my main overall point or idea about this episode. I just kind of wanted to share the fluctuating maturity, my experiences with it, and how overall, even though sometimes I still struggle with this myself, overall it doesn't really matter what people think. Just do you. Who cares if you still have tons of stuffed animals? Video games are seen as like immature sometimes, which is like, what the heck? I love video games. That's what most of this channel is about, besides autism and occasional random meme videos or whatever. But yeah, like, who cares what other people think? Just do you and enjoy what you do best. Unless it's illegal, of course. Don't do anything illegal. But besides that, obviously. Anyway, I think that's enough of me rambling. I'm going to call it there, guys. I don't know when the next episode of the podcast will be, but I really enjoyed talking about this topic. I really just wanted to talk about this maturity thing. It was something I kind of had in the back of my mind for a while, but I finally talked about it. So, yeah, feel free to check out, I don't know, the other episodes. We have 8 other episodes you could check out about traumatic experiences, about me discovering my autism, overthinking everything, so on and so forth. Feel free to check that out. But anyways, guys, that's it. Like, subscribe, turn on notifications, play some Xenoblade, and I'll catch you guys next time for more. Peace. Bye, everyone.